talk about chapter 2. We did lots of example last week, and we covered basically lots of example which didn't require much programming. It was mostly creating a user interface. The programming part was simply setting the text property of a label to a specific value by using the label name.text equal to a value, and maybe setting the visible property of a control to true or false. So any control you put on the form, you can make it hidden by setting its visible property to false. And then you can make it visible again by setting its visible property to true. So programming wise, it was very simple, straightforward programming, which is either changing a text property of a label or setting the visible property of a control. So that's all what we did in terms of programming. So most of the part was having to do to using Visual Studio, and we did lots of example on Wednesday's lecture. So you may want to refer at the recording, which are available on the Canvas website now. Right. So so chapter 2 talks about forms and controls. What do you mean by forms are the windows? Okay, the terminology that Visual Basic use for Windows is forms, and the terminology and the controls is whatever graphical element you put on the window. So we talk about form and controls. We're going to talk about the creating a GUI interface for a first application, Hello World application. We did lots of these application on Wednesdays. We'll talk about writing the code behind the Hello World application. We'll talk more about the label controls, lots of its properties and methods available to the label control. We'll talk about event handlers. These are the buttons. So when you click on a button, it's called an event handler. It's the click event on the button. We'll talk about IntelliSense, which is as you type code in Visual Studio or Visual Basic, Visual Basic will try to give you a hint of the syntax of the language of what to type. So it's good to use it whenever possible. We'll talk about the picture box control, which allow you to add images to your forms. We'll talk about the visible property, which allow you to make any control on the form hidden or visible by setting its property to true or false. We'll talk about writing a code to close an application. This is very often you have a close button on your form to activate to close an application. Or what you have to do, you write the code me.close for all the close buttons. Is going to be the same code. Me.close is going to close the form. We'll talk then about adding comments for documentation. This usually anything you follow an apostrophe or a quote, anything you follow a quote is treated as comment, and it will display in a green color on Visual Studio. We'll talk about dealing with errors and how you locate them and fix them, and displaying user messages at runtime. Okay, and then we'll talk about customizing an application form and using Visual Studio help. So let's go and go over that. We already did all the example on Wednesdays. I refer you to the video lecture, which is available on Canvas. But let's go ahead and talk about the concept. So section 2.1 talk about getting started with form and control. Windows, as you know, Visual Basic, as you know, is a very powerful and creative window application. Whenever you create a Visual Basic Windows app, you're gonna see this form displayed, okay? And you're gonna see also a Solution Explorer window, which show you the content of your project, and a property window, which show you the property of the controls that you're selecting. So in this case, when you select the form control, you see that its text property is form 1. That's why it displays form 1 on the window title, right? If you want to display something else, you can simply change the text property to something else, and this will display on the form title. The text property is one of the commonly used property that you're going to use a lot, and basically what it does, it show you whatever you type. So whatever you type in the text property is what you see on the form. So the object box that appear on the top of the property window shows the name of the currently selected control. So if you look at this one in here, on top of the property window, it tells you the control that you're selecting. It tells you you selected the system.windows.forms.form. So you selected the form control. So you selected the window itself, right? And then you can change its property. If you want to select any other control, you can simply click the control to select it, or you can select it from the pull-down list. You can click on the arrow and select the control you want from the pull-down list. And then you can change its property. Most of the time, property are listed by default by category, but most of the time you're going to list them alphabetically. So it's a good idea the first time when you start Visual Basic to click on A to Z to list the property alphabetically. So always select the alphabetical list. So by default, you have the category list is selected. But for this class, I want to list properties alphabetically. So always click on A to Z. Okay. Other windows that you're going to use often is the toolbox window. The toolbox window allows you to add controls to your form, right? So we have the button control, you have the label control, you have the text box control. All of this are in the toolbox. Simply double click on the control you want to add, and it's going to add it to your form, right? So to add a control to a form, find it in the toolbox and double click it. Another important property that we're going to use often is the name property. The name property is displayed in parentheses, right? Because it's displayed in parentheses, you're going to see it at the top of your property windows. So you see it at the beginning. And while the name property you don't see on the form, so it's not something you're going to see on the user interface, you're going to refer to it a lot in your code, in your program. So the text property is what you see on the form. The name property is what you reference in your program. Okay. The idea is you always want to use meaningful name, right? So instead of calling the button 1, you may want to call it BTN calculate tax. A description that this is a button control. This is a three character prefix, what's for BTN, button, and follow that by meaningful name. Let me go ahead and start another application and illustrate some of these important prefixes that we learned. Okay, so, and let me zoom this in. Right, so basically, depending on the control type, you want to use a prefix. So we talk about, okay, I may need to close some application because the performance is kind of affecting the audio quality. Let me see if I can do that. Just 1 second. Okay. So if you have, we talk about buttons. The prefix you would use for button is btn. We talked about labels. The prefix you would use for labels is lbl. We talked about text boxes. The prefix you would use is txt. And we talk about, we're going to talk about today about picture boxes. And the prefix you would use is PIC, right? The idea when you name a control, you would use a meaningful name. For example, if you have a button, if you have a form that look like this, and you have in here hours, and you have rate, and you have 2 text boxes, and then you have gross pay, and you have maybe calculate. So you would use some meaningful names for this one. This is a text box control, right? Because it's a text box control, you would use the txt prefix. Then you would follow that by a meaningful name. This represents the hours, so you call it maybe hours, you capitalize the first letter of the control. And this is another text box. A meaningful name would be txt and rate. And this one is a label. So since it's a label, use the LBL prefix. And you call it LBL, you would follow it with a meaningful name, will be gross pay. And this one is a button. So you're going to use a BTN prefix. And it's going to be BTN calculate. The important thing is names cannot have spaces. So because you cannot have spaces in a name, you capitalize every word following the prefix. So the H, the R, and the G is capitalized and the C is capitalized. So you can easily read the control name. But this is, you have to remember, the prefix is always lowercase letter, BTN for button, LBL for labels, TXT for text boxes, PIC for picture, always in lowercase letter. Then you follow that with words that describe the control. All right, let's go back to the presentation. I want to keep this one in that mode because when I go to full screen mode, it impact performance kind of. Let me try it again. Sometimes it's slowed down the system and it may not respond. Okay, so we have in here a good name to use would be BTN calculate because it's a button control. So we use a BTN prefix, right? Right, now the text property is what you see. So the text property is what you see on the form. So if you want to create a button and you want the button to read click me, you set its text property to click me, and then you'll be able to see that. Right, let's talk about creating GUI for the first application. We'll create an application that say hello world when you click on a button. So the idea is we can create a form that have a single button and a label, right? So in this case, that we did set the text property of the form to say my first program because that's what display on the title bar. We set the text property of the button display message, because that's what does say that is the text you see in the button. We set the label property that to say click the button, because that's what you see on the screen. So the idea is once you click the button, I want to display the message hello world, right? Now this one we covered near the end of the lecture, so I don't know why he's using message box, so let's not worry about this one. Message box is different than that. It's not the same. This is a label that you have, and you're changing the text property of the label to say hello world. There's another way you can display a message by creating a pop-up window. To create a pop-up window, you say message box. So if you say message box that show, is going to display on a pop-up window hello world. And that's what it does. It looks different than what you see on the screen here. We did an example on that on Wednesday, so I refer you to the lecture we did on Wednesday. Right, so this is basically the idea, is we have these control. This is good name, so if you can see in here, this is LBL message, right? And this is a button, it's BTN display message, right? Right? How do we program the button? If we need to program this application, how would we program it? What would be the code that you need to write to program this button? Right, let's go ahead and do that. So remember, the name of the controller is LBL message. This is the name of the label. And we're gonna change its text property to say hello world, right? So basically it's saying, so you need to program it by saying LBL message dot text equal to hello world. Let's write the code to do that. Right, so basically the way you do the programming is simply you double click the button. When you double click the button, it's gonna open up the code window, and it's going to create an event handler for you. It's going to name the event handler the name of the button, which is BTN display message underscore click. So it's going to name it. That means this is a click event handler to handle the click event on the BTN message. And it allows you to write the code. Now you're ready to write the code, right? The code in this case is when I display hello world on the label. So we have to use the label name, which is LBL greetings dot text equal hello world. This is the code, right? So you can see in here, you use a label name, LBL message dot text equal hello world. And this is gonna program it. When you click on the button, it's gonna display hello world on the label. This is all. This is basically most of the program you can do for chapter 2 is gonna have this amount, is gonna require this amount of coding. Let's say the label dot text equal value. So it's very simple. Okay, the system is taking time to respond. Okay, so I apologize for that. Now, when you do that, when you work on the code window, you're gonna have two tabs. One is gonna have the code window, all right, which allow you to write your code. Another one is gonna have the form, the GUI interface. You can switch between the two tabs by clicking on the right tab. Okay, you can also change views by using shortcut keyboard combination. So if you want to go to the code window, you can click on function key F7. This will display the code window. If you want to view the designer window or the form, you click on Shift F7. This will display it, right? So you can do it in different ways. There are three modes of operation when you run a program. First, when you are designing your form in the GUI interface, you are in design mode. This is where you use the toolbox and add the labels, add the buttons, add the picture boxes, whatever you need to know to create the user interface. This is called design mode. When you run the application, you are in the run mode. Okay, you can tell that you are in the run mode if you see a stop button. Let me go ahead and start Visual Studio for that thing. And I want to close I want to close this other application because otherwise it's going to slow the system a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and close the visualizer. Okay, and I want to start Visual Studio. All right. We talked about installing Visual Studio before and using it. So I installed Visual Studio 2019. And I want to use one of the already created application, or let's create a new application, right? So basically, you click on, always you click on create new project. And basically, Visual Studio remember the last template you use, right? The first time you have to look for this template, Windows Form app .NET. It's freezing. System is freezing a little bit. Windows Form app.net. So the first time you're going to look for it in here, but once you find it, Visual Studio will remember, so it's available in here. So you click on this one time, and this is going to allow you to create a new Visual Basic application. Okay, I think the system is not responding. I have too many windows open, so maybe I should close that. Hello. Okay, I don't know if it's still. All right, so when you open it, you can give it a name, and we're gonna save it in the VB2 folder, which I created last time, and I want to call it in here Hello World. System is not responding. Okay, so it's gonna create a project with a single form, and it's gonna be an empty form right now, which is a window basically. And you can add controls to that. All right, so this is your form. And we're creating a simple application that have a button and a label. So I want to add in here the button. I want to add the label. Okay, I'm going to check something. Maybe it's a. All right, so we have a button and we have a label. I added a link by mistake. Let's delete that. Right, so because the text is too small, I want to select the form, which is a container, and change the font property of that form to make it bigger. So when you click on the font property, you're going to get 3 ellipses. If you click on the 3 ellipses, you'll be able to change the font to a bigger font size. I want to set the font size to 12 point. Let's make it 14. Right, so it's something that you can see, and we can change the text property of this text to say click the button. Okay, and press enter, and we're going to set the text property of the button to say say hello. Right. So so I can program this button, and I was saying here, call this one BTN display message. This is the name property. And this one is, I want to name this label, change this one to say LBL greeting. Okay. Now there's a typing error in the label. Let me fix that. All right, so we have these. We can position them. We can draw a box around them that touches them and then moves them together. And I can resize the entire form. Sometimes you may have to, I closed it by mistake, but we'll get it back. So I want to resize this thing. Right, I lost sometimes if you don't see the property windows and you want to get it back, you can always get to that by going to the view menu. From the view menu, you can go to Windows, other windows, and from there you can locate the property window. Shortcut is F4. And this will bring it back. All right, so here it is. I'm going to go ahead and click on the push pen button to hide it. All right, so actually we can display it. All right, so notice it's being listed alphabetically A to Z. Once you set it A to Z, it's going to be always A to Z. So we sort that. So we need to program this button. So to program it, simply you double click it. You double click the button, and this is going to create the code window. And the code window, you simply use LBL greeting. And here's where IntelliSense comes into play. As soon as you type LBL, you're going to see LBL greetings, a hint, meaning that you can simply tab to get this text. And it saves you typing. Not only it saves you typing, but it also prevents typing errors. Then we say .text equal hello world. Right. This is basically the program. Most of the program for chapter 2 are basically doing this kind of things. Let's go ahead and run it. To run it, you click on the start button on the taskbar. When you click on it, it's gonna run. And it's gonna display basically the form. So we are in the run mode right now, okay? You can tell that you are in the run mode when you see a stop button on the taskbar. I'm gonna go ahead and hide this. They have a floating zoom bar on top. I wanna hide it. You can tell that you are in the run mode when you see the stop button in here. So you are in the run mode right now. The program is executing. So if I click on say hello, it's going to execute this event handler and display hello world on the label. And here it is displayed on the label. Right. So we are in run mode. When I close this one, it's gonna, you don't see the stop button mode. You are now in editing mode. You are in the code window or in design mode. So this is design mode. You can do your design. So don't do any design when you are running the application. Make sure that there's no stop button on the toolbar. If you see a stop button, that will mean you are running the application. Stop the application before you go in design mode. Right. So these are the two modes of operation: design mode, where you can change the user interface, and run mode when you run the application. Now, if you like, when you have a long programs, let's say you have programs that have many line of code, you can click on the margin in here to create a stop, a breakpoint. When you put a breakpoint, we're going to talk about that later on. The program, when you run it, is going to run to this point and it's going to stop running. This is called a debug mode or a break mode. Right? Let me go ahead and show you that. When I run it in here, it's going to display the form as before. But when I click on say hello, It's going to run to that point and it's going to stop, allow me to see what's happening in the program. And when I click on step over, that means execute the next instruction, is going to execute the next instruction, which is going to display it on the form. If you look at the form, it's going to display hello world. I'm going to go ahead and press it again. Here it is. You see hello world now. All right. This is called a break mode, right? So or debug mode. So sometimes, so there's 3 modes of operation: design mode, which is when you're designing the form. The run mode, which is when the application is running. Right now, it's in run mode, and debug mode when you have a breakpoint and the program stop running. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop the application right now. When I click on the stop button, now we're back to design mode. All right, let me go ahead and go back to the PowerPoint presentation. So we have in here the design mode, run mode, and break mode. 3 modes of using Visual Studio or Visual Basic. Okay, every program you create in Visual Basic, it create a project. All right, so what happened when you created this project? It created a folder. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you what happened. I did put it on the under the COSCI 103 folder. Under VB2. And if you look in here, look what happened. It created a folder called Hello World. So every project you create, basically it creates an entire folder for it, right? If you open this project, this is called the solution folder. If you open it, what you're gonna see inside of it, you're gonna see another folder called Hello World. This is called the project folder. The first folder was the solution folder. The second folder is the project folder, right? If you look also on that solution folder, there's a file with extension .sln. It's called the solution file, right? Now, if you open the project folder, you're gonna see in there some VB files. These are called source files. So you have the designer source file and you have the code source files. These are 2 source files that are important to the project. And you have another one, VB proj. This is called the project file, right? The important thing is when you want to send me your assignment, let's say you did this one and you need to send it to me. You don't send me just one file. You cannot send me just hello world as SLN. I cannot do anything with that. You have to send me everything, right? So to do that, you simply go to the solution folder, right? Right click on it to get the shortcut menu. From the shortcut menu, select send to, and then from that, select compress zip folder. Basically take the entire project folder, solution folder, put it in a zip file and send me the zip file. This is the only way I can grade your work, all right? So do not, many of you, you may do that. You may send me just one file. You may send me this one, okay? Guess what I'm gonna happen? I'm gonna tell you I cannot grade your work. Send me the entire project. Some of you may send me only this one, okay? The project folder. Project file. Again, I cannot do anything with that. You need to send me the entire thing. So the idea, again, the way you do it, you simply right click on the project. Let's say we're going to send me the flag project. You right click on it. From the shortcut menu, select send to. From there, you select compress zip format. This will create the name of the project or folder or solution.zip. And this is what you send me. So this is things to keep in mind. So every time you write a application in Visual Basic, you're creating a project folder. A solution basically is a container that holds a Visual Basic project. Each time you create a new project, you will also create a new solution to hold it. A solution folder is created for each new project. The solution folder contains the solution file and a project folder. Solution file is a file with extension SLN. The project folder contains several files and folders created by Visual Studio. and the project file, which have extension.vb project. The important things to remember is when you're gonna send me your assignment, your work, you have to send me the entire folder, the entire solution folder by putting it into a zip file, right? Any questions? This is important things to know, because if you don't send me the entire thing, I cannot grade your work. All right. You can open an existing project if you like. Let's say that I close this one. Let's say I save that. I click on Save All. And I closed it. I can click on X to close it. You can open that simply by going to the project folder. So if I go to COSCI 103, VB2, Hello World, and simply double click on the SLN file. If you double click on the SLN file, it's going to open it. You can also open it by double clicking on the project file, VB project file. Double clicking on these two files is going to open the project, either one. Let me go ahead and double click it, and it's going to open it. Okay, this may, okay, did open it in the wrong version of Visual Studio because I have 2017. I don't know if it's going to create a conflict because it's in different maybe format. Let me close that and open it in the right. Yeah, I think it will work also. So I did open it. Sometimes you may not see the form. If you want to see the form, simply double click on in the Solution Explorer, double click on form 1.vb, and you'll be able to see the form. And you will see it. I'm going to close that and open it in Visual Studio 2019. So you can always open the solution by double clicking the solution file or the project file. You can also open it by simply starting Visual Studio. This is Visual Studio 2019. And when you open Visual Studio 2019, you're gonna see the latest project you open displayed on the recently opened thing. And here it is, the first one, Hello World. I can click on it and it's gonna open it too. So you can do it that way too. Again, if you don't see the form, if for some reason the form does not display, don't worry, it's still there. If you don't see it, simply open the Solution Explorer window and then double click on Form 1. And it's gonna open it. And you see it. We have two different tabs in here. We have the Design tab and the Code tab, so you can switch between the two. Right? This is basically all about the projects in here. The important thing is when you send me your work, you have to send me the entire project folder, the entire solution folder by putting it into zip file. Let's talk more about controls, all right? More about the properties. Label controls. Labels are controls that have various properties that affect the control appearance, what you see. A label control are automatically given default names such as label 1, label 2, and so on. A label control text property is initially set to the same value as a label control name. So initially, all the controls labels are named label 1, label 2, label 3, and they are basically the text property is set to label 1, label 2, label 3. But you can change that, right? Some of the property you can change. We talked about them last time. Let me see if I can have the thing from last time with it. Okay, I think the mouse I have a wireless mouse. I think the battery is weak, so that's why I'm having problems. I have to use my laptop things to get things going. Okay, and basically these are some of the property we talked about last time, right? Of course, we have the name and text property. We already talked about that. Basically, the name property is to refer to a control in your code window. The text property is what you want to display on the screen. The font property allow you to set the size of the font and the style, so you can make it italic or bold or underline, and you can make it bigger or smaller. You can set the color, the foreground color and background color of the font. You can add a border around it. So you can have what we call a fixed border, a single border, or you can have a 3D border. So this is single, this is 3D. And you can set the auto size, you can size it. This can be either true or false. Right? By default, it is true. Most of the time, we're going to change it to false. And then you have the text align property, where is allow you to align the text inside the border of a label. All right. So that's what we talked about last time. Right. So we have in here. Here's an example of the border style. So you have in here the border style set to none. When it's set to none, there's no border around it. This is with a single border. This is with a 3D border. This is the auto size property. The auto size property is a Boolean property, which is set to true by default. Most of the time, you may want to set it to false. However, let me give you an example. If you take this label, right now, auto size property is set to true. If you type lots of text in here, press enter, it's going to show up all in one line. Even if the form is not wide enough to display it, it's going to display all in one line. This is what happened when you have auto size set to true. By changing auto size property to false, right now it's set to true. By changing it to false, you're able to size it yourself. So you can size it, and you display only what the box can hold. You can size it, make it bigger or smaller. So if I size it that much, then you can display as much as you want. So this way, if you want to display a large amount of text like a paragraph, you can do that. With that, you have also a property called text align. So when you do that, most of the time you want to put a text align property, and you want to center it, maybe put it in the center, middle center. And this is going to put it in the middle center of the label. Now, the label itself doesn't have, I'm going to go ahead and delete some of the extra characters in here. Right, so the label in here doesn't have a border. If you click outside, you don't see a border around it. But if you want, you can add a border by doing border style, like we talked. So in here right now, there's no border. The border style is none. You can change that to fix 3D to do a single border. Or you can do it a single border or 3D border. So you can do that. Right? Right, aligning, you can use the text align property to align the text. Most of the time, you're going to do the middle center alignment. You can do the alignment in your program if you like, in the code window. So, so you can maybe have initially the label may be top left aligned, and then in your program you can maybe doing middle center alignment. You can change it in your program as the program runs. This is how you do it in your program. Basically, use a constant named content alignment dot top left, content alignment dot top center, dot top right, dot middle left, dot middle center, etc. You can align it in any one of the position in your code by writing this code. For example, if you want to change the report title to middle center, you can say LBR report title dot text align equal content alignment dot middle center, and this will center it both horizontally and vertically inside the border of the label. You can change the color by setting the fore color property and the back color property. This will change the text color, fore color, and the back color will change the background color. So you can do that. So if I want to, I can change the color for this label by going to the fore color property and change that to, let's say you can do custom color, change that to blue. And the color is changed to blue. You can change the background color by going to the back color property and change that to, again, you can do custom colors and change that to maybe whatever. So you can change the colors, right? So you can easily do that. You can change the text value in your program by using an assignment statement, by assigning any string you want to that text property of the label. So in this case, you can change the output at runtime by setting the value, thank you very much, for the label text property, label output text property, and this will display on the screen. This is exactly what we did in the program in here. So right now, the output saying, click the button, but when we go to the code window, and I'm gonna run it, when I click on the button, basically the say hello button, as soon as this starts, is gonna change the text property of the LBL greeting labels to say hello world, instead of saying click to any place to continue. Okay, what's happening? It's still it's taking time. Should be here any second now. So there's not much coding in this chapter. It's mostly all the coding you're doing is setting the text property of a label to a value. This is most of the coding part. Most of the work you're doing is using the user interface. So it's very straightforward chapter. This is still, I have to probably do Alt Tab to see it. It is running, here it is. Right, so here it is. So right now, when I click on the say hello button, it's gonna execute this procedure. It's called an event handler, which is gonna change the text property of the label to say hello world. So it does that. Okay, so this is basically the idea. And this is basically what this slide means. That's how you do it, is by assigning a string literal. You can clear, if you want, a form or a label at runtime by setting the text property of that label to an empty string. Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, because it's just giving me messages that it's not responding, so I just want to make sure that you're still in the meeting. Anyway, so this is how you can clear a label by assigning the text property of the label to an empty string. This is called an empty string, which is double quotes, nothing in between, not a blank, nothing in between. It's called an empty string. You can do it this way, which is the way I prefer to do it, or you can simply use this constant string.empty, which does the same thing. String.empty is the same thing as double quote. So you're gonna clear the label basically. Right, next one we're gonna talk about multiple event handler. You can create a form with multiple buttons. So you can have, if you like, a form that has 3 buttons, not just one. So you have 3 buttons, so you're gonna have 3 event handler, the click event on each button. All right, and you have in here the label, message, and second button and third button. Right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna program it. So when you click on the first button, it's gonna say first button. When you click on the second button, it's gonna say second button. When you click on the third button, it's gonna say third button. So how would you program that? You would put the label name LBL message dot text equal first button for the first button, second button for the second button, third button for the third button. So let's see and look at the code. This is how you do it. You say LBL message.text, you click the first button. For the second button, event handler, LBL message, you click the second button. For the third event handler, LBL message.text, you click the third button. When you run it, this is what would happen. When you click on the first button, it's going to trigger the first event handler. You click the first button. When you click on the third button, it's going to trigger the third event handler. You click the third button. Right, so it's very straightforward. Right, this is the assignment. It's creating something as simple as that. Making sense of IntelliSense. The bottom line, IntelliSense is when you see the hint from Visual Basic, use that. Use the hint. Right, here's the thing. You start typing LBL. Visual Basic is going to display LBL translation. As soon as you see that, press on tab, and you're going to get LBL translation. When you say .te, you can see text. When you see text, press on tab, you'll see that. This is not only will save you typing time, but it also, more importantly, it avoid typing error. And typing error can cause you serious problem, right? It can carry a serious problem. I'll give you a simple example how you can get into trouble if you do mistyping. Let's say that I'm going to go ahead and do this again. I'm going to comment this one. To comment that out, you could put apostrophe. Apostrophe will turn it into green, meaning this is comment. It's not part of the program anymore. So let's say I'm typing in here LBL, and as soon as I type it show up LBL greeting, right? I should press tab to accept that, but I don't type. I'll just keep on typing greeting, but I forget the S. I just say LBL greeting without the S. Dot text. Right, I do that. Notice I have errors now, right? Because actually it did added the S. Okay, but so you have errors now, right? Because I didn't use IntelliSense. I think that I'm referring to the right control, but there's no control called LBL greeting. So it give me an error. So I cannot run it anymore. So to avoid that, as soon as you see what you want, press on tab. And then you don't do typing errors, and then you don't have any errors in your program. So always use IntelliSense. Picture box, you can add pictures to your control, right? So a picture box control display a graphic image on a form in the tool. To do that, you would simply select the picture box tool in the picture box control, right? When you add images, it's going to name them PicBox1, PicBox2, etc. Right? So, for example, if I want to go to this one, go to the design window. I can add a picture box from the control of the toolbox. All right, here it is, picture box, double click on it, it's gonna put it there. Right, and then I can put any image. I can select the picture box, go to the image property. And the image property, I can click on the 3 ellipses, and I can select local source, or I can add it to the project. Let's go and do local source and say import. And I can go to the VB2 folder. Okay, VB2, I think I have the images there. No, I don't have images there. Okay. Okay, anyway, let me see if it's in here. Okay, I can pick up an image and say open. And import, okay. You can see that you're not gonna see the entire image there, right? Because by default, the size of the image is normal, meaning that if it is too small to fit, you're not gonna see it. If it is too big, then you're gonna see some blanks around it, all right? There's a way you can fix that is by doing stretch image. You do that by selecting the size mode, which is normal by default. Most of the time, you can set it to stretch image. When you set it to stretch image, if it's too small, it's going to stretch it to fit. It's not going to keep the proportions. So it doesn't maintain the proportion of the image, right? If you like to keep the proportion, you can change the size mode to zoom. If you do zoom, it's going to set the closest size that would fit the placeholder and keep the proportions of the image. So it's a matter of choice. You want to use zoom or stretch image. But the author like to use stretch image. So this way, if you make it smaller, doesn't matter how small you make it, it's always gonna display the entire image, that flag. So the image property have a size mode property. So you can add it as a picture box control, and then you can do size mode property on it. So in this case, you can select it, import it from your local computer. Other option is you can add it to your project like we did, right? So another way I could have done it, I could have simply right-click, open Solution Explorer, right-click on the project name, Hello World, in this case, and from the shortcut menu, select Properties. And this will work, this is probably what you want to do if you have lots of images. Let's say your project is going to require 50 images, and you don't want to do it one by one. One way to do it is simply do that and then click on Resources. And from the resources, you can do Add Resources, and you can see Add Existing File. So if you do that, then what you can do is you can navigate to where the files are. And this is right now, and then select the files, then say open. And it's going to add them, all the image there. So if you have lots of images that you're going to use in your project, let's say you have 50 images, you don't want to do it one by one, just do it this way. Just go to the project property, do resources, then click add resources, and this will add it, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click on that to close it and save it. Right. So now if you click on if you add another picture box, when I go to image, 3 ellipses, you're going to see that there are 3 images in here. These are what we imported. And then you don't have to import them one by one. So usually if you have lots of images, it's good to do it using project resources, right? And it's gonna add it there. But sometimes the image is not gonna fit right? So you have to, because it is by default is set to normal. Most of the time you're gonna change it to size mode, you wanna change it to stretch image or zoom. So it will fit nicely in the container. You can, if you like, treat picture boxes as buttons. You can program them to act as buttons. So if you want, you can do this. Let's do it in here. I'm doing 2 applications in one window. So I want to put these images in here. I may delete them because they are kind of not the same size. And let me add them again. So I'm going to add in here 3 picture boxes. 1, 2, 3. Right now, I can add the picture. I can go to the image property for each one of them and select the image from the list. So we have one for Finland, one for France. It doesn't fit, but we can fix that, no problem in a minute. So we have, this is France. And this is Germany. Right now, we need to change the size mode for all of them. One quick way to do it is you can simply draw a box that touches all 3 flags. This will select them. With all 3 flags selected, you can go to the size mode property and change it in one step to all 3 of them. Search image. So now it's going to fit nicely. And then we're going to, let's move them also while they are still selected. Move them in here. Let's add a label. Right now, the label is right now is auto size, which is not what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and change the auto size property for the label from true to false, so I can size it myself, and I can size it. Now it's not centered. The label is not centered. We need to change the text align property to middle center. You can go to the text align property in the property window and change that to middle center. So it's now centered, and I can take the label. Right. Now, notice is there's no border around the label. So if I click outside, you don't see anything. All right, so you probably want to put a border around it. So to do that, simply select it, and then go to the border style and change the border style from none to maybe fixed 3D. And make it look more like 3D, 3-dimensional. I can, if I want, change the color. So let's do the background color, change that to whatever color. And let's change the foreground color. I just actually black is fine, but let's do custom. Let's do dark navy or blue. All right, so we have that. Now we can program, if you want, the pictures as buttons. To program, simply double click on the picture. And it's going to put you in the code window, and this is a picture box 1. I should have named it. I didn't name it. That's, sometimes if it happened like this and you don't want this event handler because it have the wrong name, right? One way you can do it is simply drag the mouse to select the subroutine from private sub to end sub. Don't select the entire thing, just what the one you don't want, and press delete. This will remove it. And let's go ahead and rename these boxes. Right, convention, again, if you remember, the convention to name picture boxes, you use a name with a prefix PIC, and this is Finland. And this is, yeah, the P typed O instead of P. And I can do the other ones. Let's do France and okay, and Germany. Right now I can program these like you program a button. So I can double click on the Finland flag. It's going to create an event handler, the click event on the Finland picture box. And then I can program it exactly like you program buttons. So I can say LBL, and I need to name the label. Let's go ahead and I can go to the code, to the design tab, select the label, and let's call this one, let's name it LBL. Right now it's named label 1. Let's give it a meaningful name. Prefix LBL. Let's call it in here country name. Right, so once you do that, I can go to the code window and I can type in the code window LBL, and notice it's going to show you country name and greeting. I want to select country name. I can click on what I want and press tab. Dot text equal to Finland. And so I can program it like I program a button, okay? And I can do other 3 if I want to, but let's do the other 2. So I can double click on this one. This is LBL country name. It does remember the last label it typed, dot text equal France. Okay, and if I want to create the 3rd one, I can always go to this one and double click on Germany also. And again, it's going to remember the last label, dot text equal Germany. Right, so we have 3 event handlers that handle click event on a picture. So you can treat picture like buttons. Okay, if I run it, it's going to allow me to click on these pictures, and based on the picture I pick, is going to say Finland, France, or Germany. So it can treat them like buttons. So we can program not just buttons, but also picture boxes. All right. This is take a little bit time, right? Any questions while we're waiting for this one to start? Okay. So check programming. Most of the programming you're doing is using setting the text property, dot text equal. And we did lots of example on that also on Wednesday. You can check that. Okay, yeah, here it is. Notice I can click on Finland now. The different flags, and you can see the country name displayed on the label. Right, so I have like in here 2 program in one. So the hello one and here. So we have 4 event handler in here, right? 1 for the button and 3 for the picture boxes. Right. This is basically what we did. You can treat buttons as a flag, a picture as flag, and these are the 3 event handlers that we typed. So you can program it that way. The visible property is another technique we learn in programming. Any control, you can make it hidden, right? So a control visible property determine if the control is visible on the form or at runtime. By default, all control are visible, but you can change their properties to not visible. Many times you want to have an exit button. If you have an exit button, you want to program it so when you press on it, it closes the form. To program it to do that, the code is always the same, which is you type simply me.close, and this will close it. Very straightforward. You need to document your program by adding comments. Comments is anything that follow an apostrophe. If you put a single quote, anything that follows is going to appear as comment, right? For example, in here, I can add at the beginning, I put in here a comment, but I can more appropriately for all your program you're going to write, you're going to put documentation at the beginning that include your name. So you're going to put in here name and put your name. I want to see your name on all the programs. So any program you write, make sure you put your name and put that as a comment. You may want to put maybe the date. Maybe you're going to put the purpose of the program. What does the program does? Okay, this is what you need to do for chapter 2. You need to put your name and the purpose of the program. When we get to chapter 3, you need to add, in addition to purpose, you need to put what's the input, what's the output, what's the processing. So always do documentation at the beginning as comment. So add them as comment. You can, if you want, add a apostrophe or the quote, and then follow that by asterisks to, to do separation, kind of to indicate this is documentation section. But documentation or comment are ignored by the compiler. They are there just to document your program, to explain what your program does. Always do blank line, space out your program. Make your program easy to read, all right? Don't try to write all things together, look at the spacing in here, in the code. Don't try to do this. Cramp them together and maybe delete the spacing. Don't try to do it like this. I mean, Visual Basic will indent it automatically, but if you try to put everything to the left margin and no spaces between, it's going to be hard to read your program. When it is hard to read the program, then you won't understand your program. So always write clearly. So this is called programming style. So you need to have a good programming style. Programmers commonly use blank lines and indentation in their code to create sense of visual organization, right? For example, you should insert a blank line to visually separate your code into a group of related statements. This makes it easier to read. Indentation helps to organize all statements appearing inside event handler. Visual Studio automatically indent your code. So the nice thing about Visual Studio, it does indent your code so it looks easier to read, but add spacing between different sections, so it's easier to read. This is the important thing. All right, that's all what I have for today. On Tuesday, right now I think it's 12:32. Actually, I have a couple of minutes, but on Wednesday we're gonna start with chapter 3. Right? We did lots of example, all the example we need to do, and everything about chapter 2. So you have enough information to start working on the chapter 2 assignment. Actually, since Wednesday, there is a video recording of the examples we did on Wednesday. They are available already on the class website. Let me open them to show you where it is. So if you So there should be a Zoom link at the beginning. And the lectures are kept on the top Zoom link. So when you go to Canvas, and the class website, you're gonna see on the top link, there is a Zoom lecture. So you have all the lecture we're doing on there. So we have chapter 2. I'm gonna add the link that what we did today. But the one we did on Wednesday is there. So I will add to the another one, part 2, so you can get to that. So on Wednesday, we will start with chapter 3. Very important as a reminder, to do Visual Basic, you need Windows, all right? So there's no way around it. You do need Windows. And if you have a Mac, you have options. The option is to install Windows on your Mac. So there will be partitioning of your hard disk. One part will be for the Mac, another part for Windows. But anytime you do partitioning to the hard disk, there's a risk of something can go wrong. So if you want to do that, you have to do it at your own responsibility. I will email your options to an email for people with a Mac. I'll email your option to email. If you are a Mac user and you need, you have a question regarding this thing, send me an email. I will send you a reply to you. But the other option is that if you don't have the software or hardware and you cannot continue with the class, understandably, because the college is closed and we don't have any Windows computer to use, then you may want to consider probably taking an excuse withdrawal before May 10, which is the deadline for excuse withdrawal. Also, the deadline to take a pass, no pass grade is on May 10 also. The instruction on the college website about pass, no pass is that you would have to go to the to your college my college lacc.edu kind of interface, and from there you're gonna click on chat with counseling and get assistance by asking how would you do that. So if you have a question, please do that. That's all what I have for today. Just a reminder, you have a quiz, you have an exam is due. The exam, if you haven't taken the office exam, the due date for the office exam is, I think, is the end of this week. So keep that, be aware of that. There's a practice exam for that. So if you haven't taken the practice exam before the week 8 exam, do that. The due date for the week 8 exam is actually deadline is midnight tomorrow, the deadline. So if you haven't taken the week 8 exam, make sure to do that before midnight tomorrow. This is a deadline, all right? Which is chapter 1 and 2 of Word, Excel, and Access. Any questions?
It says the exam is due today, but it says it's open until the 21st, but due today.
Yeah, but the deadline is tomorrow. So you can do it today, maximum is tomorrow. Okay, I always give a 24-hour grace period after the due date, just in case if somebody, there was an internet problem. But make sure you do it before before tomorrow deadline. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any other questions? All right. You have a nice day. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording, and I'll see you on Wednesday. We'll start with chapter 3.
All right. Thank you, Professor.